Today, we're jumping into an absolutely incredible story. It's about a small band of rebels taking on a massive empire. It's a masterclass in military strategy, a story of unshakable faith, and it's all about how a desperate fight for survival gave birth to a tradition that has lasted for thousands of years. Okay, so to really get what's going on, you gotta know the key players whose plans are about to collide. First up, you have Judas Maccabeus, the brilliant, charismatic leader of the Judean rebels. And standing against him are two major figures from the powerful Seleucid Empire. Gorgias, a top general sent to just crush the rebellion, and Lysias, who's the viceroy, basically the regent for the king himself. The stakes are high. And this whole thing really kicks off with a situation that honestly looks impossible on paper. It begs the question that's at the very heart of our story. So, the empire makes the first move. The Seleucid general Gorgias thinks he has a foolproof plan, a surprise night raid. The idea is to sneak up into the mountains, find the Jewish rebels, and just wipe them out before they even know what hit them. I mean, just look at the odds here. It's completely lopsided. Gorgias takes an elite strike force. We're talking 5,000 foot soldiers and 1,000 of his absolute best horsemen. And what does Judas have? 3,000 guys who, as the text says, had neither armor nor swords to their minds. They weren't just outnumbered, they were massively outgunned. But this is where Judas shows his genius. He doesn't just sit and wait to get attacked. He anticipates the move. He lets Gorgias's elite force go on a wild goose chase in the mountains, while he takes his own small army and marches straight for the Seleucid main camp, which is now undermanned and totally vulnerable. And right before they launch this incredibly daring attack, Judas rallies his men. He gives this powerful speech, basically telling them, hey, don't be afraid of their numbers. Don't be afraid of their attack. Remember our history. Remember how our ancestors were saved from impossible situations. He's turning their fear into fuel. And you know what? It worked. Big time. The surprise attack on the camp is a stunning success. Judas's forces completely overwhelm them. It turns into a rout, and 3,000 enemy soldiers are slain as they try to flee across the plains. So picture this. Gorgias and his elite troops, they come back from their fruitless search in the mountains, and they see smoke. Their own camp is on fire, and down in the plain is Judas's army ready for round two. The psychological blow is so huge that this elite force, the hammer of the empire, it just breaks and runs without even putting up a fight. The victory at Emmaus was a huge deal, a great deliverance, but this war was far from over. The Seleucid Empire was humiliated, and you better believe they weren't going to let that stand. So the very next year, the regent, Lysias, comes himself. And this time, he is not messing around. He brings a truly massive army. We're talking 60,000 foot soldiers and 5,000 horsemen. Judas manages to gather 10,000 men. The odds are now even more insane than before. So, facing the seemingly unstoppable force, what does Judas do? He turns to his faith again. The records show his prayer before the battle, and it's fascinating. He's asking for victory, sure, but specifically, a victory delivered by the sword of them that love thee. He's framing this fight as a holy mission for his faithful followers. And incredibly, it happens again. This smaller, deeply motivated Judean army clashes with Lysias's giant force, and they win. The imperial army is put to flight, leaving 5,000 dead on the field. Lysias himself has to retreat all the way back to Antioch. Now, with their enemies pushed back and demoralized, Judas and his brethren can finally turn to their ultimate goal. See, this was never just about winning battles. It was about reclaiming and purifying their most sacred place on earth, the temple in Jerusalem. But when they get to Mount Sion, what they find is just devastating. The text paints this heartbreaking picture of a desolate sanctuary, a profaned altar, burned-out gates. The holy courts were so overgrown with shrubs they looked like a forest. It was such a shocking sight that they fell to the ground mourning. But they didn't just despair. They began a very careful, methodical, and sacred process of restoration. This wasn't just a cleanup job. They chose new priests, they tore down the old, defiled altar, and they built a brand new one, exactly according to the law. Piece by piece, they restored the sanctity of the temple. This whole process leads up to the dedication. And this is more than just a reopening party. It's a formal reconsecration of the temple. It was a moment of incredible joy and spiritual renewal, full of music and worship, marking the return of holiness to their most central place. And get this, the timing is absolutely crucial. They chose to hold the dedication on the 25th day of the month of Caslu. Why that day? Because it was the exact anniversary of the day the temple had been profaned years before. They were literally turning a day of national shame into a day of ultimate triumph. You can just imagine the joy, the relief among the people. It was so profound, so powerful, that Judas and the other leaders decided this moment, this victory, this rededication, it could never, ever be forgotten. So they made it official. They created an ordinance for the whole nation, declaring that these 8 days of dedication, starting on the 25th of Caslu, were to be celebrated every single year with mirth and gladness. They were creating a brand new national festival right then and there. And this is the punchline. This is why this ancient story is so important today. That ordinance, made over 2,000 years ago to remember a military victory and a spiritual renewal, is the direct historical root of the holiday we know as Hanukkah, the Festival of Lights, celebrated by millions all over the world. Which leaves us with one last thing to think about. What does it take? What's that spark that transforms one moment of historical struggle and victory into a living, breathing tradition that endures for thousands of years?